Hello, 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 hello. Tracy Lee coming to you live from my beautiful swing in my backyard in Austin, Texas. I'm just sharing that with a couple of groups. And it's been a while since I've done a Facebook Live. I used to do them all the time. And today I am sitting in awareness, something I sit in a lot, with a lot of gentleness for myself today. Tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of the death of one of, maybe the greatest man I've ever known, my dad. And his death was not unexpected. He was 2 weeks shy of his 95th birthday. And though he was not unwell, it's never shocking when somebody in their 90s passes away. And so how will I honor him and nurture myself is the question. So, of course, I'm aware of the date. In the Jewish tradition, we light something called a yahrzeit candle on the anniversary of someone's death. But even more than that, even if I wasn't aware of the date, my dreams have started to be about family and about times we shared together before my dad died. Some of them have been stirring for me and emotional for me, and created some longing. The continuity of my family changed completely after my father died, which I was not expecting or prepared for. And perhaps the hardest part of his death for me. And so, as a teacher of self-love, one of the things that I teach and practice is awareness of self. What am I feeling? What, if anything, is disturbing my peace? What do I desire to feel? What do I need? What do I want? And some of you may have seen my post about cinnamon raisin toast. I've had that cinnamon raisin toast in my freezer for I don't know how many months and months. And today I pulled it out and put a piece in the toaster, ate it, and had to eat another piece. And as a little girl, cinnamon raisin toast was my favorite. I remember Sunday mornings with my dad at brunch. We would go to brunch at a family friend's house every Sunday, and I would always ask for cinnamon raisin toast. So even unconsciously, I'm feeling connected to him and the memories of him and the memories of me and him. And I allow myself those indulgences and those comforts. Grief is an interesting thing. As a teacher of love, grief is one of the facets of love, and most people don't know that. Most people avoid grief like the plague. Interesting, now we're in a plague. But for me, grief is the way that I get to commune with or be with or experience and remember the loved ones that have passed on. It's a way for me to keep them a little more connected and on the inside than I would if I avoided grief. So leaning into the grief today and tomorrow, I intend to be very tender with myself. I intend to spend time sitting in front of my computer screensaver and just watching the photos roll by, noticing whatever emotions come up and allowing space for all of them. I have already asked for a Zoom call with my kiddos tomorrow night as a way of really honoring my dad and myself and each of us. My dad was really my children's hero and an amazing, amazing man. And I feel compelled to tell you a story about my daddy. The one that comes to mind is when I was a very little girl, right around the raisin bread toast age. They used to have these popsicles. So this is like in the early 70s. They used to have these popsicles that instead of wooden popsicle sticks, they had plastic popsicle sticks that had holes in them and you could build things out of them, kind of like Legos, but not really. Anyway, and then they were all different colors, and green was my favorite color as a little girl. Interesting, green, the color of the heart chakra. Green was my favorite color as a little girl, and one day I got a green popsicle stick. And I knew my daddy was going on a business trip, and I knew it was important, and I gave him, the story goes, I gave him the green popsicle stick as a good luck charm. And do you know he kept that green popsicle stick in his address book for years and years and years and years? And long before payphones, when he would travel, which he did a lot, he left that address book at a payphone bank in an airport. And he tells the story that the thing that crushed him the most was losing that popsicle stick. That's the kind of man he was. The addresses and the names and numbers and all of that could be replaced, but the popsicle stick could never be replaced. And that's the kind of man my dad was. He taught us to value family above all else, to appreciate life, to appreciate food and nature, to care for one another, to care for those less fortunate than us. And he always taught my boys at the beginning of the school year that we only get one chance to make a first impression, so make a good one. And he was a really good man. He wasn't a perfect man, but he was a really, really good man. And when I would talk about in adult life, and I'd get on Facebook Live and I'd talk about how did I come to be a teacher of love, a teacher of self-love in particular, I would say that as a little girl, I didn't always feel loved. And Daddy in his 80s and 90s was one of my biggest fans. And he would watch my Facebook Lives, and it was very hard to say that because I knew that would potentially hurt his feelings. And he would always comment and say, "You were always loved," which is true, even if I didn't feel it. So what I want to model for you guys really and encourage you is not to avoid grief, not to pretend like death isn't real. That'd be a really hard thing for us to do right now in the world as we approach almost 500,000 Americans who have died to coronavirus. Be very hard to ignore death, and yet we try so hard. And part of that is because we've lost the traditions and we've lost the art of being in a tribe and grieving together. I know that there are some religions that do a really good job of that. And as we've gotten more and more away from religiosity and more into spirituality, some of us anyway, I want to bring back the art of loving through grief. And anytime I see that someone has died, or a friend posts something, or somebody sends me a message that someone has died, I always say, every tear shed in grief was born of love. Every tear shed in grief was born of love. There is no grief without love. And it doesn't matter if you're grieving somebody who died, or a pet, or a relationship, or a job. Whatever you're grieving, we cannot be alive without grief. That is just a part of the human condition. And there is some magic in being able to lean all the way into grief, fully into grief. And I find the opportunity to touch and remember the texture of my daddy's skin, the smell of him, and so many delightful things that I wouldn't be able to do if I chose to avoid grief. Grief becomes the vehicle for which I get to spend time with him, as he and I are in different realms right now. And I wouldn't want to miss that. I have a beautiful painting of him that hangs on the wall in my office. And when I turn off the lights, I say, "Good night, Daddy," almost every night. I don't want to forget. I want to remember. Even though there's pain, there's sweetness as well. And I do believe that that is one of the great lessons of life, is how to be in the sweetness, even when there is pain, to be in the and energy instead of the or energy. And it's not always easy. And being able to be in the joy of grief is one of the sweetest things I know. To be able to say yes to grief, because I know that it's a facet of love, is one of the sweetest things I know. So if you're watching, notice what you're grieving today, whatever it is, big or small, and see if you can lean into it just a little bit more until you can find the sweetness of remembering. The sweetness of remembering, the sweetness of communing, and share, if you will, in the comments below what you're grieving and a sweet memory you have. Some sweetness that came from that relationship or that experience that is no longer in the here and now in the same form that it once was. So signing off, thank you for witnessing me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for loving each other. And I hope today you find a way to love yourself just a little bit more.